Hi everyone and welcome to Biz Bestie TV episode number 5. I'm Nicole Head and I'm your Biz Bestie, and tonight I'm super excited to be speaking to Trudi and Elizabeth Jones about boundaries. None of us are quite sure where this conversation is going to take us. We're all excited about where it may take us, so if you've got any questions that you would like to ask or like us to touch on, please pop them in the comments. But I'm going to hand over to Trudi and Elizabeth and let them share a little bit about themselves and why they're joining us tonight. Trudi.
Oh, I loved this topic because, as I was saying off camera, I've had so many business mentors and coaches say that there has to be boundaries and there has to be rules and there has to be limits, and I kind of like throw those boundary rules out the window. So I just thought this is a great time to talk about the non-traditional rules of boundaries and doing what works. I love this topic. Love it.
Me too. Trudi, last week you were on here as a direct marketing person. Yep. Do you actually explain a little bit in your other job what you do? So people know a little bit about your expertise as well, please.
Oh, okay. So I've been in business for 9 years now. Wow, that sounds a lot when you say it like that. And I work with women who want to move beyond startup and grow and expand their businesses in a systemized and sustainable way. So we don't necessarily follow the rules. We do what works for us. And yeah. We fill in that space that a lot of people miss in their business strategy. So,
yeah, beautiful. Elizabeth, welcome. Would you like to share? You've got an amazing journey, and you've just changed a little bit about what you're doing. But so, do you want to say where you've come and why you're here, and where you're actually taking your business? Is very exciting.
It's so good.
Well, where have I been? My background is I've worked as a relationships therapist and psychologist for Relate in England and Relationships Australia. And for about the last 5 years, I've been working for myself in private practice. And on the 30th of April, I decided that I didn't need to be constrained by the glorious Psychologists Registration Board anymore. And I made probably one of the bravest decisions of my life, and I actually decided that I didn't care anymore. And I realized that all of my experience that I have had all these years wasn't going anywhere, and that I needed to be more true to myself. So I added being a clairvoyant to my resume of skills in terms of being a relationships therapist. So when I see clients now, they see me both as a relationships counselor and as a clairvoyant. So I work with both skills with clients. And what I'm discovering is that in one session with me, I can do what would probably take me about 6 sessions to get to with conventional therapy. So it's been a really exciting journey for me, really exciting.
So if anybody to work with either of you will pop it in the comments as well after we finish our chat. So Elizabeth, boundaries is one of your babies in relationships. Yes. Explain to me what a healthy boundary is, or a non-healthy boundary, whatever you want to start with.
Well, people often come to me and they say, look, Elizabeth, I want to know what my boundaries should be, this idea of healthy boundaries and unhealthy boundaries. And yes, there are boundaries that are unhealthy. They're pretty obvious in relationships, but we all have a different idea of what we want to have out of a relationship, because we're all different. So what I say is when you set your boundaries, you set the boundaries that you believe are right for you. And it's important that you're consistent. And then the client will say to me, but Elizabeth, how will I know when to change my boundaries? And I say, well, if we're thinking about it in a relationship context, puppy dog eyes, tantrums, pleading, nagging, all of those things, they're not hard evidence to make you change your boundary. But if your partner's able to say to you, or whoever you're setting the boundary with, whether it's a work colleague, if they're able to present you with solid evidence, that's when you review the boundary. And what you say to yourself is, am I going to be emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually safe to change my boundary? And if the answer is yes, then you can shift your boundary. If the answer is no, then you hold on to your boundary. So it makes it easier for you to think about how you might manage yourself in day-to-day life. And of course, the foundation of good boundaries is knowing yourself, because you can't plan for every single situation that you might be in. So rather than trying to plan for everything, you get to know yourself, so that when you're presented with a situation that you've never experienced before, you have a confidence of knowing how it is that you would respond without really even thinking about it, because you know in yourself what your beliefs, your values, and what it is that you want for yourself.
Trudi, we were talking before we came on camera that we're not sure how set our boundaries are. With what Elizabeth's just shared with us, what do you think your boundaries are, and are they movable, and can they change?
Well, I think my boundaries work for me. So professionally, I don't have the thing, I only work 9 to 5, and if you message me, you have to wait 24 hours. And, you know, if it's online in my social Facebooking time, but one of my clients messages me, I don't go, oh, it's 9 o'clock at night, I'm not going to talk to you. I'll help. But those boundaries work for me. So I guess it doesn't look like there's boundaries, but I also have that confidence within myself that if I wanted to change and go, okay, my life shifted a little bit, I've got a boyfriend now, so I might not be as accessible in the evenings, but I will check, as long as those boundaries or limits or whatever you want to call them are in place and are well articulated, I don't have a problem with that. But it's as soon as somebody says it's a rule, that's when I like, you can't tell me what to do. Rah.
I don't like being told whatsoever, and kind of, yeah, well, you all know that I'm shying away from webinars at the minute because I've been told I have to do one, so I'm on my anti-webinar thing, but that's another story. Are boundaries built in it? Are some of us strong enough to, or have the boundaries already built in us, Elizabeth, or are we raised to know our boundaries? How do some people stick to their boundaries better than others, do you think?
I think some of it's personality. So, and sort of there's this real nature-nurture argument between, are you born with good boundaries or a certain personality, or does it evolve over time as you grow up in your family? And the answer's both. So if you're in a family where there are good boundaries around how everybody interacts with one another and the sort of respect they have for one another, then you're going to take that out into the world as your life template. But also, if you have a strong personality where you perhaps are a bit more extroverted, or you have a bit more inbuilt confidence because somehow you are able to put yourself out there a bit more, then you might well be more forthcoming in naming your boundaries, and so therefore putting those, those guidelines in place. So it's a complex question to answer in terms of whether people are actually born with the inbuilt ability to name their boundaries. I think it's a combination of both.
So we can all learn a way to have a happy place with our boundaries, is what you're saying.
Oh, definitely. And it comes from really doing that hard internal work to actually understand yourself, what you want, because when clients say to me, but what boundaries should I have? They want me to say, when you're with your partner, these are the things that are okay and not okay. Now, if it's abusive behaviour, for example, then obviously I'm going to label it as such and say that's not okay. But day-to-day life, you need to be able to know what you want, because my life's experience is different to your life's experience. So what I want will be different to what you want. So therefore, you know, the boundaries will be a little bit different. I think the most important thing is consistency as well, being really consistent. That if you don't like something, that one day you like it, the other day you don't, that doesn't work. You've got to be able to be consistent.
Then we have a lot of talk about on social media, and especially Facebook, that people are exhausted and different things on Facebook. Trudi, how do you think we can set our own boundaries within our business around social media and all of that? Because I don't think people are aware that they need to have, whatever their boundaries are, that they are able to set them and they don't have to let people in. What do you think?
Well, that all comes down to having a strategy or a plan around it. And like Elizabeth says, being consistent. So I know there's people out there, you know, I'll jump on social media, for example, and I'll spend a bit of time in the morning, I'll check it again at lunch, and then I'll pop in again in the evening. So whatever those boundaries are. So back in the days before I had a boyfriend, he's actually he's sitting over the other side of the room. My boundaries were limitless. There were none because there was nobody else to consider. So it's putting a structure in place and considering other people around you. So if you have a partner, you have kids or anything, when it comes to social media, and having a clear idea on what your outcomes are.
I guess.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, a little bit. But I also meant that we don't have to like everyone on social media. Like we don't
just block people I don't like now.
It is okay to set boundaries in relationships on social media, and we don't have to
follow, snooze. I think that's the thing, because I think as women, and Elizabeth might have something to add to this as well, women, we're conditioned to be the nice girl, to play polite. We wouldn't say if we had a mouthful of it. We've got to be like, we have this thing that we're conditioned with, and I think it's shifting now. But, you know, I'm 44 next week, and it was always like, you have to be the good girl, and that behavior comes into play. So it's very hard to put boundaries. But now I'm just like, no, you're not adding joy, fun, happiness, excitement to my life. I see your posts that make me miserable, or you're nasty. I can't even be bothered engaging anymore. It's just block, be gone, move on. And you're allowed to.
Well, because I know people may not realise that they are able to. If people make me uncomfortable in my business, or I block them. Like if they're mean to me or whatever, and we don't actually build each other up, I just say, that's it. Not being mean or like that. We obviously don't build each other up. What do you ladies think? Is it okay to set those boundaries on social media in business?
Absolutely. And in fact, the biggest trap I find is women who are very giving often find themselves on the receiving end of a toxic toad. And so...
Elizabeth, for those who don't know, what's a toxic toad?
Well, I use toxic toad as a way of describing abusive men that come into your life that aren't Prince Charming, basically. And it all links back to my book. I don't know if I've got a copy of my book here. Oh, yes, I do.
Those cane toads that you lick them and they're poison.
But what I was going to say was the problem is that where we get caught is we are kind, caring, reasonable people. And we make the mistake of believing that other people are kind, caring, and reasonable. And we keep giving them chance after chance after chance. And not everybody's nice. And, I'm an internet troll, needs to be across some people's foreheads. And that doesn't happen. And so we keep giving people chances because we think that they think the same way that we do in a kind, caring and reasonable way, and they don't. And so it's about having those boundaries to say, you know what, you're not nice, and so I'm not going to have you as part of my social media space or even part of my life. Or, you might not necessarily cut someone completely off, but you limit your contact with them so that they can't put you into a space where you are constantly upset, defending yourself, or having your boundaries stomped all over.
I love the snooze feature on Facebook, putting people on a 30-day snooze, and then they come back, and then if they're like still annoying, block.
So is that the same as like a block feature? It's not. You
can block and they can't see anything. You can unfollow or unfriend. So if you unfollow, you're still friends, but then they don't show up in your feed. Or you can snooze people for 30 days, and then after the 30 days ends, they'll start showing back up in your feed again. Because sometimes people are just on their little journey and they get a little bit headachy, but you still love them. You just need a break, so you can snooze people.
Well, I unfollow family members, so because I obviously love them and don't not want to be their friend. I just don't want to know their issues are their issues and my issues are my issues.
Yep.
So I unfollow people because there's a couple of people in business,
right?
Yeah, and there's a couple of people in business that I've blocked not because of anything they've done, but I actually do get anxiety when I read their posts or take it personally. And it's like, you know what? I just don't have time.
We don't need that filling up our heads.
Yeah.
Or worrying is like, what are they posting now? What are they? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Clear the clutter. Elizabeth knows all about relationship clutter. Talk to her about clearing the clutter.
So last week, Kerry Hyland brought up about validation and the boundaries to set with your partner when you're in business, Elizabeth, and I know that you wanted to touch upon this as well. Mm-hmm. Would you like to start the conversation?
Well, to me, where would you like me to start it? Do you want me to talk about the impact of intimacy, like the business on intimacy in a relationship, or what is it that you're wanting me to talk about?
Well, let's go there. That's where you went, so let's go there.
Well, the problem that you can have is if you are, and I know many of us have gone down this pathway of trying to build a business online, and it doesn't take very long to realise that it is hard work to actually get a business to float in the online space. It looks easy because we all float around looking glamorous, but the reality is it's really, really hard work, and it's 24/7. And it can be absolutely all-consuming. If you start a group, for example, you can find yourself checking that group all the time to make sure that everything's okay. By the time you do all your posts and interact and everything else, it can take many, many hours. And what can happen is the business can become like another person within the relationship. And so your partner can feel like they are competing with the business for your time, love, and affection. And so it's very important that you recognize this and put some boundaries in place around when and how you are spending time on your business and with your partner, so that your partner doesn't get totally neglected. That's, the impact is really like having a third person in the relationship.
I love what you're sharing there, but can I also ask you on the other side that when our partner isn't supportive of the time that we do need to spend in our business, what's your advice there, or what's your opinion there?
Well, that's about your partner understanding what's important to you. So that's about being able to talk to your partner about the fact that your business is really important to you, and about maintaining your own identity within the relationship. And ultimately, it really gets down to, in a relationship, how much your partner is prepared to respect what it is that you want for your life and how much they're prepared to support it, and finding that really fine line between, you know, giving a fair and reasonable amount of attention to your partner, or your partner saying, hang on a minute, I'm not going to be put second best, and perhaps demanding more than's reasonable and not allowing you to have your own space. It's a very, very fine line to walk.
Trudi, what are your opinions on that?
Oh, I agree with what Elizabeth says. I suppose it's different because, you know, having been in business for so long, the relationship that I've now come into, the business stuff was already set up. So it's been more of a compromise to bring it back and meet in the middle, rather than you're spending all of this time. So probably a little bit of a different perspective. But for me, it has been a shift in creating a new boundary for myself, whereas I used to, you know, still start my mornings at 10 o'clock in the mornings, but having to work more efficiently so I'm not working every night, because I think, you know, that's what I used to do. So I don't know if that actually really contributes to the conversation, but I also know this is a part of who I am and what I do, and that for me it's a non-negotiable that my partner actually respects my work, but I'm willing to be flexible and communicate about it. So I suppose that's the biggest thing, is that communication in there.
My husband and I actually have worked together my whole adult life. So my first job, corporate job, was with my husband. Then we got together and we actually created a business. So this is it. So we've kind of never had to, because it's always been our thing. So this is the first time I've created something by myself. So it's something that I don't understand as much, and I guess I'm very lucky because he's always been in business and knows what it takes to be there, and we've been able to give that give and take. What is your advice, Trudi? Trudi's in a new relationship with a new boyfriend. Has it always been in previous relationships as easy as it is now? Were you as confident to say, this is me, accepting as I am, or not?
When I first started a business and I was in a relationship with somebody and I'd come out of corporate, that was a bit of a stretch, because they went from this huge pay packet to like, oh, all of a sudden that's all gone. So that was a whole thing around spending boundaries, time, being very visible in what I was doing. So he was secure that I was taking action. That was very interesting. But I suppose my previous two relationships were long distance, so I could just do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, basically. So I'm like, yeah, this one's the test. So he's very good about it. So a lot of communication. So saying, this is what I'm doing today. This is where I need to be. I've got a webinar tonight. I'm on Biz Bestie TV tonight. I'm doing this X, Y, Z. But also having that flexibility to go, you know what? He needs some time too. So push off the rest of the to-do list. I'll finish it in the morning, sort of thing.
Yeah. Elizabeth, what have you got to add on that?
Well, my situation was very different, because my partner and I have always worked for somebody else.
Okay.
And up until when I came sort of home and said, I'm going to work from my front room, which was sort of the beginning of my own practice and doing my own thing, we'd both always just had jobs. So it was sort of, we'd have the communication when he was on a project and had extra hours, or I had extra things to do. But there was never ever that 24/7 that happens when you're trying to get a business going. So it's been really hard. I've had to communicate a lot with him, and he's had a lot of frustration, because it's a lot of trial and error to get things going. And so it's been interesting, because he's never ever seen what working for yourself is like. And that it is, it can be very hit and miss. Some things work, some things don't. and that it is, because you work for yourself, your chief cook and bottle washer, you do everything. It's not a case of, oh, well, I need some more. Like I would walk downstairs when I Relationships Australia and say, I've got no appointments. Could somebody book me some? And they had a whole admin team that were taking calls, and they would just fill my diary. It was wonderful. And then I'd walk downstairs and I'd walk into the waiting room, and there was my first client for the day. And upstairs we'd go. I didn't have to think about finding anybody because they found them all. Wonderful.
And the pay packet each week, Elizabeth.
What's that?
And the pay packet each week from Relationships Australia.
Yes.
Yep. Know that one, lady.
Very different. For me to even sort of go through it and to sort of understand that, just how businesses evolve, and what I've learnt in the past 3 years has just been extraordinary in terms of my own personal growth and my partner's as well. And it's been really hard because there's been times where I think he would have thrown my business out into the street if he could.
It's a big thing, is that communication aspect. And it's like, I suppose I consider it like having a child. Like I've never had kids, but I imagine, you have this thing, you've got to love it and nurture it and look after it. And I read a lot of stories about how partners can get a little bit jealous when the new mum comes home and they're fully focused on this thing that's so dependent on them, this little baby. And I think it's like that. And I think it's a big thing for me, who can be pretty self-absorbed, to go, actually, what does he need as well? What does the other person need? And it's the same. What do my clients need? Instead of me deciding what they want, and how can we work that together to create the best outcome? Because it's easy to get defensive and upset if somebody says your business isn't making any money. Why are you doing that? That's not working. Let me tell you what to do. And, 8 times out of 10, they're coming from a space of love. But it's, what are they seeing? How can...
Yeah. As you said, it's like a child, and Elizabeth has said, like it's another lover. I think we fall in love and we adore our businesses so much and just want them to succeed that we do forget about the world around us, because this is our heart and soul. And especially anybody who wants to stay in business or be successful on and aligned with their purpose, we're actually in love with
that starting boundary. Then it's like, okay, well, do I sit down with my partner and like put some boundaries in place around this, or do I just tell them to nick off and I have to deal with it? Choice either way, really. Might not be in a relationship for long after that.
So another question that's come up about boundaries and social media again is people coming into your space. So you're in a conversation online and somebody private messages you.
Mm-hmm.
What are the boundaries you set up personally with things like that when you actually don't, it's your private message inbox and you don't want to be messaged or something
I'm
like
sure
that?
Elizabeth has some things to add to.
I
can see you there going, oh, pick me.
Well, we go back to the previous question, and one of the things that's so important in a relationship, whether you are in business, trying to start a business, working for yourself, whatever, in a relationship, we all want to think our partner puts us first. And the reality is we can't always put our partner first, whether it's because of children, work, parents, whatever. But our partner wants to know that they are front of mind. So when they say to you, you don't put me first, I come last on the list, what they mean is, I just want to know that I'm front of mind. So if you involve your partner in decision making, even about your business, if you make the effort to message your partner through the day, just with a smiley face is enough, that they know you're thinking of them and that what they think matters, that goes volumes towards.
That is gold.
My husband and I have always, when we're not together, we've actually always rang each other every day. Like, it's just something that we do, you know. Other people think it's, you know, that we're controlling each other and all of that. It really isn't. It's just saying, hey, thinking of you, love you, bye. That's it. You know? I think it's really important.
The messaging one, because I'm a counsellor, and since I've included clairvoyance in my work, I get people messaging me their entire life story wanting an answer. And I have learned to type, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I really appreciate it that you trust me to tell me your story. However, I don't see clients over Messenger. If you would like to book an appointment with me, here is the link. And I don't say anything else. And sometimes I'll come back with even more stuff. Yes, but. It's a big one. Yes, but. Yes, but. Yes, but. And I do the what I call the boundary broken record technique. And I just cut and paste what I've already said and I post it again. And that's how I manage it.
Because you would be getting flooded right now.
I'm being absolutely flooded at the moment. But it's good.
We're all excited for you, Elizabeth. Trudi, what about you?
Look, my thing is I don't feel pressured that I have to respond straight away. If I can respond, if it's a quick yes, no, simple thing, sure. But if I'm out and about and I just check my messages and I see there's a long involved message for somebody that's going to take a bit of time to respond, I'll either go, okay, cool, I'll get back to it later, or I might just say, not at my desk, I'll respond when I'm on my laptop. Might not be till tomorrow. So I've taken a lot of obligation out. So that may be a boundary that I've put in place now. I haven't thought of it as a boundary, but I've taken the obligation out of what I do. So I'm not obliged to respond to you straight away. I'm not your puppet, which sounds probably a bit harsh, but I'm not your puppet. Like, I'm here to serve, support, empower, and uplift. If you're my client, I will make much more of an effort. But if it's a random person that I don't know and I've got no relationship with, or if it's not urgent, I don't have that panic that I had when I first started in business, that if I don't respond straight away, they're not going to like me, they're going to get mad, they'll go find someone else to work. So all of that's gone. So I suppose that's a boundary now.
Also, I guess I'd like to know, I find it really hard to say no to people. So what about those people that just PM you to sell you stuff and all of that?
Oh, gosh, can I answer this one?
Yeah, please do.
It ties in a little with the direct marketing thing from last week, because I know people will message, they're taught that they need to message you to build leads, da-da-da-da-da. And you know what? I just say, hey, thanks for thinking of me. Not something I'm interested in at this time. If I change my mind, I'll let you know, because everyone is doing the best that they can with the tools and the resources that they've been given. And if they've got somebody that says you need to message 100 people and they're doing it, they're actually taking action. And I think that's actually a really positive thing for them, because so many people wouldn't. But I'm under no pressure to buy from anyone, no obligation, no things. So it's the obligation thing again. But I don't think you need to be rude. And for me, I find that if you're rude to people that approach you, you're probably going to get that back. You get, what you put out, you get back, sort of thing. So if they're pushy, though, I'll tell them to not be pushy. If they keep asking, I'll be like, hey, dude, chill out. No.
I prefer to be asked if I want to be involved in that conversation and then get my choice, because I don't like to actually say, no thanks, but no thanks.
I'm just reading the comment. I had a client last week that I didn't reply to within the hour, who then re-messaged me with hello. Ooh, okay.
Ouch. Okay. No. Sorry. So, Elizabeth, how do we set our what is the rule to set a boundary?
Well, it needs to be something that is it needs to be authentic to you. So my boundaries are not your boundaries. You need to work out what works for you. That's what's most important. And you need to be thinking about, if you find people stomp all over your boundaries, I've got 4 questions that you need to ask yourself. And that is, what is it that I've said my boundary is? So get really clear. Think about the feelings. When have I felt like this before? When have I felt these feelings before? So thinking about, family and the past. Who have I had a conversation with in the past that feels like this? Because that's when you start to realize when the boundary was first crossed, or when you first allowed people to stomp on your boundaries. And the very last question you need to ask yourself is, if I'm going to change my boundary, am I going to be physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, mentally safe? Am I going to be safe to change this boundary? And if the answer is no, then you don't change it. And it's really important to recognize that you don't change your boundaries unless you have real hard evidence to change them. So it's not about putting up a rigid boundary that nobody can penetrate. It's about recognizing what's real evidence that would enable you to change that boundary. Of course, there are some things in relationships that are absolute no-nos around abusive behavior. So hypercriticism, obviously abusive language, swearing at you. There's a big difference between swearing in general and swearing at you. Obviously physical abuse. There's all sorts of horrible psychological abuse that can happen around, things like gaslighting, where people move objects and then pretend they haven't moved them, and all sorts of horrible things like that. Passive-aggressive behavior, saying yes, acting no, all of those abusive tactics. Of course, you need to have boundaries around those. And it's quite... it's really important to educate yourself about relationships so that you understand how to manage those boundaries around that behavior, so that you can really stand firm on what's important for you, and not allow yourself to be stomped on. So important.
Elizabeth, before we go any further, if anyone that is watching is experiencing relationships or anything like that, or this is a trigger to them, who should they contact?
Okay, so if you're in Australia, Lifeline, which is 131314 from memory. I'm just going to look it up now.
And I'll put the
Lifeline, 131114 is Lifeline. They are they're a really good central number to call, because they have a referral service. So wherever you are in Australia, they will refer you to a support service no matter what your issue is. But don't call them in prime time, so overnight, in the early hours of the morning. Call them through the day if you possibly can, because you will get the engaged signal. And a lot of people get very angry. I know when I did some time when I was studying on Lifeline, and people would get very, very angry because the line was constantly engaged. The trouble is, they would have as many lines as they could, but their funding and the amount of donations and things they get limit how many lines they can have. And I remember I would put the phone down, take my notes, and no sooner did I put it down, it was ringing again. So it's not like they're slacking off and they're all, in the corner having a coffee and not working. The phones go non-stop and they're manned non-stop. So just in there, yeah.
So your advice is to reach out to somebody if you're in a situation that's not okay.
The thing that's difficult is finding your local. There are local family violence agencies. It's just finding them. So somewhere like Lifeline's a good place to call, because if you explain what's going on for you, they'll do an assessment and then make an appropriate referral for you based on your area.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we've asked ourselves the 4 questions, and so we're in a situation where we have to create a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And we ask ourselves the 4 questions. How do we go about saying, how do we go about changing what we do to, work within our new boundaries? Because I assume it's something that we have to do over and over again like a habit to actually be part of us.
Okay, so you've realised that there's a situation where you are going to have your boundaries stomped on. It might be something like people constantly asking to borrow things or wanting you to go out when you really need to be studying. And it's good if you can anticipate the situation, because then you can plan for it. And what's good is if you can come up with something to say that you can rehearse to yourself, a bit like a self-affirming statement. And, it might be something like, no, I'm sorry, I can't loan you my book because I've lost too many. And but if you want to take a photo of the cover, you might be able to borrow one from the library. Having something you can say. One that I love is, that I use all the time is, no, I'm sorry, I couldn't make a decision about that now. And I play this stupid female and I go, I'm sorry, I couldn't make a decision about that now because I have to talk to my partner about it. And if you've got a pushy person, like a pushy salesman or whatever, saying to you, yes, but what's there to object to or whatever, and push you again, you use broken record technique and you just say the same thing. You say, look, I just really can't make a decision today because I have to check with my partner because I'm going to be spending money, making an appointment in my diary, whatever it is. And look, it might make you sound like a bit of a stupid female, but if it gets you out of it, that's all we're aiming to do, is to name the boundary and stick to it. So using that broken record treatment technique of repeating the same thing. Yes, another one is using an empathic statement. Yes, I know you really want me to come to the party now, but I really have to stay at home and study. I'm sorry I can't come out with you this time. And then, but I really want you to come. It's going to be so good. Yeah, I know you really want me to come, but I can't. I have to stay home. And so using that broken record technique and just saying the same thing can be a really good way of holding on to something that you know is really important for you.
Trudi, what have you got to add?
I don't think there's anything else for me to add. I think Elizabeth's covered it. I think maybe it's an age thing is like, it just comes with time and just rehearsing it and practicing what you want to say and how you say no. Because, for me, it's only been those last few years where I've been able to say with confidence, yeah, you know what, that's not going to serve me to do that thing or go there, and thanks for the invite, but it's not my thing. I just go with honesty. If people, my friends and that respect it, so I don't know if that really helps anyone, but I think we're allowed to be honest, and we just give ourselves permission to say, hey, no, thanks, no.
What gave you the confidence to be able to be honest, Trudi?
Just got tired of doing things I didn't want to do, and just I don't really know what happened. Like, I had a bit of a dodgy relationship last year, and that pushed all of my boundaries back down, and then just made me go, I'm stronger than that. I'm allowed to say no. How did I let this person get into my head? And so now it's just probably, that's been a bit of a reinforcer actually, now that I've stepped out of it, that I need to say no for my own personal mental health and safety. And it's, once again, it's very much a permission-based thing for me. It's like, nope, I'm giving myself permission now to put myself first. So I think it was just the negative really allowed me to step fully back into that positive.
So you create a very strong boundary, a very big shield to protect yourself from an
a lot of it's protection, safety, and going, I'm just no more rubbish. Get rid of it. And that's like what I was saying, boundaries, block. You're saying unkind things, you're being a bit snarky, block. I've just decided now that, ain't nobody got time for that. Life's too short.
Yeah. I love your just say no. I love your just say no.
Yeah. But
no.
it's a process. It's working through that good girl stuff, because for so many years I was the good girl and I had to be super polite. Now it's like, if you can't handle me saying no, are we actually really friends? Maybe not.
I think life takes you get to that point where I think you've had enough life's experience that you kind of, who you are. You just get to that point, you know who you are, and you're just not going to take rubbish. That's how I felt. And so I could really identify with what you're saying, Trudi. You just get to that. No.
But none of it's out of maliciousness. The boundary is about looking after me. And I've done a bit of work. Emma McCann, I've done some training with her, which was really awesome. Being a part of Tammy Pike's tribe was really good as well. I learned so much from my amazing clients. Start smiling, people. That I've been blessed by who's around me, and I'm going to fight for that and hang on to that, because I've seen the bad, and now I just want to be surrounded by the good, and that's all I'm letting in. Huge boundary now.
I totally agree, and it's okay to support your boundary. If you disagree with something or don't like the idea of something and you strongly believe in it, and that it is okay to actually voice your opinions as well. You don't have to hide behind what.
But I've created a safe space for that now, and that's a big thing with a lot of the women that Elizabeth works with, is having that safe space to start with.
Yeah.
And I think too, realising that the person that needs to advocate for you is you. You're your own best friend, and you're really the only person that you can rely on. And it's not really fair to be relying on other people to advocate for you and look after you, because if you keep relying on them, ultimately they will disappoint you. They can't be there 100% of the time. Whereas if you advocate for yourself, that's where you get this, you have the strongest protection.
I think we only have the strength to survive from illness. I don't think we actually can fully breathe or operate each day unless we do have that strength inside us. And recognizing this actually just makes us powerhouses to achieve so much more. Elizabeth, what was the other point you wanted to bring up? I can't remember. Can you?
No, I think we've talked about everything.
Have we? What about you, Trudi? What have you got to bring up?
No, I think the biggest thing is that when I first heard of this subject was not feeling you have to set your boundaries by common expectation, and allowing yourself to set the boundaries that work for you in your business where you are right now, but also being open to having flexibility around those, and especially how those boundaries impact other people. I think that's probably...
On that, can I also ask both of you, in this Trudi, you're a coach, I'm a coach, Elizabeth, you're a relationship coach now. How is it that I think that we're in an age that we all think we're experts, and some people push their expertise onto clients? So if you're in a situation that you're being coached by someone, or you're in groups or masterminds or whatever, how do we go about setting boundaries in those situations to go, okay, thank you for what you've taught me, but it's not comfortable with me. I'm not, it's making me not enjoy what I do. Does that make sense?
I suppose I'm the kind of coach that says, okay, here is a way to do it. How can we make this work for you? And that's where it's that whole thing. If a coach is telling you that their way is the only way, and this is a huge bugbear of mine, that's when you've either got to speak up, say nothing, or walk away. Like, it's totally up to you then. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's the boundary you're creating. Yeah, those three things are, it's like, okay, you either tick one of these off.
Yeah. I don't know, has Elizabeth got something to add to that?
Are you talking about therapy where a therapist is highly directive? And
maybe for you a therapist, but like for me, so we work with Trudi, Elizabeth. So if we all have a very collaborative process where we, you know, it's feedback, and Trudi goes, this would be good. We go, how do I fit this into what I do? Blah blah blah. I've been in situations where I've been in groups or whatever that you're told that this is how you do it. If you alter off this part, you're not going to be successful.
I think
that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I've not encountered it to that degree, I must say. But to me, I think you just have to have your own. It's important to have your own mind about things. I mean, if I had a client come to me and told me that they had somebody saying that to them, I'd say my first words would be, "What do you think? What are your thoughts?" It's one of the reasons why I won't tell people what their boundaries should be, other than identifying abusive behaviour. Because
I guess what I'm asking is because there are people out there that aren't comfortable, that they're told they're not going to be successful. It doesn't sit right, but you're not going to be successful. So if you're coming out of whatever situation, you're new to business, you've never seen business, or you're trying to validate your business to your partner, you know, you've got all this stuff going on and the pressure to be successful, and you're all being told, well, you don't have to like what I do, but you have to do it.
That's a personal assessment. Yeah. Because maybe that person actually has good value to offer.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if somebody's saying, follow this formula and you will be successful, you'll get a result, you know, maybe there are people that do have something to offer in that. I suppose it's a personal thing. I've worked with somebody that it's like, if I had have stuck to their process and that, I would have probably been more successful, but their process wasn't ethical to me. So I couldn't actually do their whole thing because it didn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
There's lots of people out there that I guess we're three very strong women who are quite capable to say no. If we're pushed, we will say no. Like, we're not going to put ourselves into situations that we're not comfortable with. But there are people out there that don't have the strength yet, or not aware they have the strength yet, to be able to set those boundaries, to go, no, it's okay. You can do it your way. What's your advice to them?
Do you know what I think? I think it's all part of a growing process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To get to where I am now, I've been in situations where I have naively believed, when I think about the beginning of my business, naively believed that certain people that will remain forever nameless had the magic bullet that was going to make my business work. And I gave them many thousands of dollars to do so. And of course, it didn't work. But oh boy, did I grow. And I think in life you have to have the stuff-ups to grow and know who you are, and when you are going to say no, and to smell a rat to identify a toxic toad when you see one.
It's all learning. I can identify those toads now.
I don't think there's anything that you can say to someone that will other than to say to them, you need to be doing the internal work to build your own self-confidence, so that when you're sitting in a situation, someone says to you, it's my way or the highway, that you can have that internal belief system that says, now just hang on a minute. That's my belief.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of intuition. I was very naive and very, very trusting when I first went into business. Like Elizabeth, I handed over a lot of cash to people who really, I learnt a lot. I'm not going to take away what I learnt. I learnt what not to do and how not to behave, as well as what to do. And flexibility creates freedom. And I was then able to take what I'd learnt and then mold it into a system and a process that worked for me. Mm-hmm. So if you can filter for lessons, that's where the growth is, I guess. And then you can learn to readjust and realign your boundaries and for the next time.
So what we're saying there really is learn from any situation we're in and use what we've learnt to create a boundary. And if you don't take the right path, it's okay, because it actually will help you create a boundary along the line. Yeah. All right. Well, we've come up nearly to our hour, ladies. Thank you for a lovely conversation. I love spending time with both of you. What's your last thing to say to our Biz Besties, Elizabeth?
My last thing to say to you is slow down, particularly in relationships. Slow down. Don't rush. And watch, wait, and listen to keep yourself safe. And if you want to translate that into a business situation, just what we were talking about, we are now in an age where people showcase their work. They put themselves out there in many different ways, and you can sit back and wait and watch and decide before you take that leap of commitment. So that's what I would leave you with.
Thank you. Trudi, what would you like to leave us with?
No, I'm not sure if there's much that I can add to that. It's a learn and grow process. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Keep learning, keep reassessing, and be kind to yourself in the process. You know, people push our boundaries. Sometimes we drop our boundaries for people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think the biggest thing is, you know, be kind to yourself. We all make mistakes. And just, you know, ask those questions that Elizabeth said and be reassessing and put yourself first. It's okay to put yourself first, your needs first.
And keep your partner at front of mind.
Front of mind.
Yes. That's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies. There will be, if you could both drop in tomorrow along the comments, because a lot of people rewatch the show tomorrow. And if you can both put in how you may be contactable. Elizabeth, when are your lives in your group?
Wednesday evening. So tomorrow evening, Australian Eastern Standard Time, Melbourne, I will be doing relationship tarot card readings. So what I do is I invite people to ask me questions, and then I give people insight through my clairvoyant skills with tarot cards. So that's tomorrow, every Wednesday evening at 7:30 in my group, my Facebook group, Relationships and Dating Advice for Women.
And you'll put the link in the comments. So if anyone wants to join, beautiful. And Trudi, your webinar is when?
Next Wednesday. So I'm running a webinar, Grow Your Reach During Launch. So how to connect with your ideal client and get more eyeballs on whatever it is that you're launching, because we know that's a numbers game.
And the lists and all of that awesome stuff.
Sorry?
And what to do with
nurturing and building relationships and, you know, all of the good stuff that you love.
All of that juicy stuff. Can't wait. All right. Thank you very much, ladies. Put the links in so if anybody wants to join them, they can. I love spending time with you both. Next week, we have another one of our My Biz Besties of Jamie Thompson joining us and Cassie Day, and we're talking about work-life balance. So I'm very excited.
Oh, two lovely ladies.
They're two awesome ladies. So Jamie's also the VA of Biz Bestie, thank goodness, because I wouldn't be able to do it without
And this chick means business. She can't do.
A lot of us can't, a lot of us don't survive anymore without Jamie. Anyway, bye for now. See you on episode 6 next week. Ladies, I love you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye. Bye. Bye, Nicole. Thank you. Bye.
Bye,